Cool. How's everybody doing today?
Wonderful.
Okay. So my name is Storr, and I'll be talking about Black patriotism today. But before I get started, I just want to get a feel of how everyone, at least generally, is thinking about patriotism. So I need a little help. I just need one volunteer to at least tell me what they think patriotism actually means. Anybody?
Love for one's country.
Thank you. So love for one's country. So based on that definition, and just by a show of hands, how many of you in here would consider yourselves to be patriotic? Okay, well, no, I mean, it's good because through this presentation, my goal is to not only challenge your already formulated ideas on patriotism, but to actually change them, hopefully, for better or worse by the end of this presentation. Now, historically, patriotism has been used in the United States, especially in black populations, as an indicator of how loyal African Americans are perceived to be. So the American National Election found that only 28% of whites actually thought that African Americans were patriotic, while they thought 51% of whites were mostly patriotic. See, this one-sided interpretation of patriotism is used as a way to normalize certain behavioral characteristics of people who identify as patriotic, while also branding dissimilar groups as unpatriotic. So in my opinion, especially recently with certain events that are going on in the United States, a realm of topics have been put in this category of patriotism that has nothing to do with patriotism. And there's also my perspective that the word patriotism and the meaning of patriotism has been hugely misinterpreted as a way to fabricate some false image of what it means to be a true patriot. Now, this is Colin Kaepernick, and for those of y'all who don't know who Colin Kaepernick is an NFL football player who decided to take a stand on racial injustice by literally taking a knee. Now, his protest was met with, well, it gained significant notoriety, but it was also met with allegations of unpatriotism, basically, and in an attempt to tarnish his whole protest. But in some instances, it actually worked. See, in a study done by the Washington Post recently, they wanted to find out how millennials were thinking about black patriotism. And in this study, they had 1,832 respondents, and 520 of them were black, 508 were white, 510 were Latino, and 257 were Asian American. Now in this study, they had enough diversity to really rule out any kind of bias and any kind of social or political thought, but once they disaggregated by race, they found that white millennials were the only racial group that didn't have a majority that actually supported the protest for racial justice. Now, not only are white millennials less likely to support these protests, but they're also less likely to believe that police killings of blacks is a serious matter. See, over 90% of African Americans actually believe that this is a serious matter, while only 46% of whites believe this is a serious matter. See, what this shows is that even among millennials, that there is a present sense of racial resentment. And although the protest actually started as a symbol to be something that was to push towards racial equality, the message was misconstrued and it was subject to sabotage. See, this single event was used as a way to basically redefine patriotism in the United States. See, my problem with that is that these bold accusations actually had no meaning or had no evidence to kind of follow this up. What I mean by that is that even here, we're always taught that you make a claim, you support it with evidence. So allow me to do that. In the U.S. Flag Code, Chapter 10.176, literally titled, Respect for Flag, you will find these statements. The flag should never be carried flat or horizontally, but always aloft and free. The flag should never be used as wearing apparel, bedding, or drapery. The flag should never be used for any advertising purposes in any manner whatsoever. And no part of the flag should never be used as a costume or athletic uniform. Now, time and time again, there's these instances where people are attacking and making other people to seem like unpatriotic when they're just giving themselves some kind of false qualification as if they're some expert in patriotism. Now, this is extremely hypocritical, and it only serves a person as a way to try to justify them as being the very patriot that they want to be. Which brings me to Mr. Donald Trump. Now, my main problem with Donald Trump's agenda is the level of consistency in his message. or the level of inconsistency in his message, excuse me. See, Donald Trump, and let me explain, and I know all of us know the slogan that he used to push his campaign, Make America Great Again, but at the same time, I know that we can all agree that in theory at least, for America to become great again, it must what? Right now be not great. So in other words, when you have someone who's saying that he is this huge patriot, but yet his whole campaign is founded upon the notion that America is not great, you see a couple of problems that really fall out there. Now, not only did Donald Trump criticize America in this way, but then he had many remarks about the protests that were going on in the NFL. And he went to Twitter and said that courageous patriots have fought and died for our great American flag. We must honor and respect it, make America great again. Now, despite Donald Trump's deep love and respect for American troops, it seems as if he would respect them, time and time again we see these instances where it's actually the opposite. This is Captain Humayun Khan, and in the 2016 election, his parents actually spoke at the Democratic Convention. And following the Democratic Convention, Donald Trump had a few words about the Khan family. Now, despite Captain Khan actually receiving a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart due to his patriotic, and I use patriotic in the most pun intended type of way, he questioned the parents' patriotism. Now, this is Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, and this is the widow of LaDavid Johnson, Maisha Johnson. In an interview with Good Morning America, she told them that in a phone call she had with Trump, that he actually stumbled over his words trying to remember her husband's name. Then he went on to later say that Johnson knew what he signed up for, but that he guessed it still hurt. This is Arizona Senator John McCain, and Arizona Senator John McCain was infamously humiliated by Donald Trump, and the former prisoner of war in Vietnam was considered not to be a true hero in Donald Trump's eyes, saying that, and I quote, "I prefer people who weren't captured." Now, John McCain, as Americans would come to know, was bound to a single cell in Hanoi. And he had two broken arms, a broken leg, and was beaten and tortured for 5 years. Now, Donald Trump didn't stop there, though. He said he experienced his own personal Vietnam. He said that his own personal Vietnam was him trying to avoid sexually transmitted diseases while dating. But then he went even further to say that he considered himself to be a very great and true and brave soldier. Now, on top of this, you have Trump's evangelical advisor, Robert Jeffress, who suggested that the NFL protest and that the NFL athletes should consider themselves lucky. Why? Because in North Korea, if they were to take a knee during the national anthem, that they would be shot in the head. As if blacks didn't have any reason to fear being shot in the head by police right now. As if that wasn't the very reason that they were protesting to begin with. Now, what's the difference between white patriotism and black patriotism? Because there seems to be some kind of disconnect. See, when Donald Trump criticizes America, he's seen as the most patriotic person in the world. But a black man criticizes America, and no matter how much he's sacrificed, contributed, or loves the country, he's seen as unpatriotic. Donald Trump humiliates and disrespects veterans and all kinds of military personnel. Yet, Colin Kaepernick kneeling during a national anthem is somehow more disrespectful to Now, what you see is that there is a bias quota that allows people to socially exploit this double standard in order to keep pushing this agenda of this false reality of patriotism. Now, according to Sean King, this is more than just a double standard. See, this is evidence that America is actually devolving into a black hole of bigotry, racism, and white supremacy. It's evidence that to be black and in pain is the same as being politically incorrect. It's evidence that a lot of white folks around the United States believe that this is their home and that black folks are here as guests and should be thankful that they're even welcome here. But see, black patriotism a lot of times doesn't look like traditional patriotism. Black patriotism is something much different, and it comes across as different. See, what a lot of people don't understand, nor they appreciate, is the level of commitment that blacks have to patriotism. See, blacks come up with their own ideologies, their own traditions, their own ways of exhibiting that patriotism in order to express the patriot within themselves. See, blacks all over the country lay proud claim to the national anthem. James Weldon Johnson's Lift Every Voice and Sing. They lay proud claim to their national flag, the red, black, and green Pan-African banner. See, black Americans don't come up with these traditions and these own ideologies for themselves because they reject patriotism. No. They do it because traditional patriotism rejects black Americans. So Frederick Douglass's speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July," spoke volumes to how even black Americans, a lot of us feel about these patriotic traditions that still go on today. And in the speech, he said that, and he reminded us that although the 4th of July is a day of rejoicing and celebration for a lot of white Americans, for modern slaves and former slaves, it was a day of resentment and mourning, because they found that it was just a reminder of all the empty promises that the government had fulfilled and then handed to them. When the Declaration of Independence was signed, people all over, Americans all over the country, celebrated and rejoiced in the name of patriotism. But in that declaration included the idea that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, those rights being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. See, the flag and the anthem, they're merely symbols of that, and that's it. Symbols that could be easily misconstrued or misinterpreted, misused even, like it has been by the KKK in the past. See, black Americans, they protest, they criticize, and they kneel because they are trying to fill the gap and fill the unfulfilled promises that the government has left them with. They're trying to reach that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that was actually embedded in American patriotism. I think James Baldwin said it best when he said that, "I love America more than any other country in this world. And it's for that exact reason that I must criticize her perpetually." See, those who kneel during the national anthem aren't doing it because they disrespect the flag. They're doing it because they're trying to defend the core values of the Declaration of Independence. See, in my opinion, there is no greater act than that. There's no more patriotic act than that. And it's because of that that I can easily and confidently say that blacks are the most patriotic people in America. Thank you.
Wow. I don't know about you all, but I'm blown away. Let's give the panelists.